Well, there we go. I nearly forgot to set up the microphone, but hey, here we are. This is Threes to Wound. We're going to be doing some list building today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. And we're going to do something a little bit different today with the list building itself. We're going to be building a chaos list, 1350 points. So, still tying into a little bit of what I was doing last time with building what I think is a really, really great number of points, 1350. There's an upcoming tournament called Arc that I'm going to be participating in. And I think this is a great points limit. But of course, I still, like to try a few different lists. I'm pretty sure I'm taking Astra Militarum, but it's good to have some backup lists. Literally last night, a balanced data slate dropped. Things changed, point values have changed, and I'm pretty sure that list I made the other week is already going to have some changes, but that's the nature of the beast. I guess one of the other different things I'm going to be looking at doing with this list as well is I'm going to sort of build it backwards because my chaos collection is a little bit smaller. I definitely don't have as much stuff in it as opposed to my Space Marines, my Astra Militarum. Instead of sort of building the list and just going, oh, well, I've got all these things and I'm going to build it that way, I'm actually put into the roster creator using new recruit today. I'm putting into that all the units I actually have from Chaos, and I'm going to cull the list backwards to kind of find the list I want within the models I actually have. Because obviously one of the things, it's an expensive hobby. You're not always wanting to add new models. And sometimes when you do a bit of list crafting and list theory building, you get also that shopping list gets a bit longer and longer. So I'm trying to work within the means of what I already have, and finding a list and hopefully finding a bit of a theme and which sort of detachment will work best with that as well. So this could be a terrible idea, but it could be a great idea. It's just a different way to look at list building as opposed to starting with a blank canvas. I'm starting with a really crowded canvas, and I'm going to start trimming the fat and get it down to hopefully a lean and mean 1350 points. Chaos is such a great team. The Chaos Space Marines are such a great team. I haven't got to play them as much as I would have liked recently. There's only so much time in the day. We'd always love to spend all our time and weekends playing games, but it can be a little bit difficult. So these guys have been a bit neglected, but I've been wanting to get back to play some more games with them. So let's bring up new recruit and we'll dive in and sort of have a bit of a look at the overview of what's the stuff we've got. And then we can kind of start working back. We'll look at some detachments and what might suit the bits and pieces I've got. It's a bit of a mixed bag, to be fair. So we've got new recruit here. If you're wondering what this program we're using is, this is new recruit. It's just a free list builder, just works in your PC browser. Obviously, I find this great because I can't use the app on my PC. It's nice and clear. It always appears to be up to date, so I'm hoping it's got the changes from last night. But if not, it'll still be a fun little exercise here. There might be some tweaks here and there to the points values. So first things first, let's have a little bit of a walkthrough and look what we've got. We've got nearly 3,500 points of chaos bits and pieces. Obviously, I come from a big background of a lot of kill team stuff, so it's a bit of an eclectic mix of things I've got that I've just sort of added vehicles and characters and some bits and pieces too. But there's a lot of kill teams in here, and that's why you'll see there's a lot of units maybe for chaos stuff you don't normally see. So we've got the classic Chaos Lord with a Demon Hammer Plasma Pistol from Blackstone Fortress, that model. That's where I got him. We've got a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, Cultist Firebrand, Dark Apostle. We've got the Dark Commune, which is a cool little unit. Obviously, started a kill team, but does some cool stuff in 40k as well. We've got a Demon Prince. We've only got the non-winged variety. So that's not the end of the world. The winged one has some options, but there has been some changes that I still think make the current Demon Prince an interesting, definitely worth a look. We'll just have to see if the points at 1350 fit in. Master of Executioners, Sorcerer in Terminator Armor, and Traitor Enforcer. So, oops, I think we've got two there for some reason. We'll just do just one. So, yeah, interesting sort of little mix there of HQ stuff. So we're definitely not going to be taking that many. We'll have to cull that down, and it's definitely about making sure that with your HQ, they're going to be maximizing whatever detachment. So we'll finish going through the battle line here. We've got two cultist mobs, so two bunch of just regular Joe boys who just love their chaos, just doing the best they can. Got two 5-man squads of Khorne Berserkers. They could also just be one 10-man. And we've actually got and we've got 10 Legionnaires. I do have more Legionnaires. I should probably say we'll probably put another 10 in there. I think no matter what, I won't be taking too many of them. But the 5-man Legionary squads have been a staple in a lot of lists at the moment. So we'll definitely have to come back. I think some of them will make it in. I do love the Khorne Berserkers as a great little allied in unit. Obviously, they're not as good as the ones in the World Eater detachments. But hey, they're still worth a look. I still, they for a flavor perspective, I love having a Rhino with 10 Khorne Berserkers in it, just because I think it's really cool. Then we come to other infantry. We've got the Accursed Cultists. We've got 5 Chaos Terminators there. Realistically, I've got up to 10 if I needed. Some of these squads I haven't maxed out the numbers yet. We've got 5 Chosen. Again, I've got 10 of those, so we can do a full squad or some 5-mans. Felgor Beastmen, another interesting one. These guys are got some little tips and tricks that they can do. They're not great, but they're not a bad alternative to something like Cultists because they've got ways to get up the board early and put some pressure on your opponent or steal some points. They might be worth having a bit of a look. And again, thematically, I love having Beastmen in a Chaos army. I just think it's very, very cool. We've got 5 Havocs. We've got the Nemesis Claw, which again is actually a 10-man, but you can do it in 5-mans. We've got 2 squads of Noise Marines. Going to be an interesting one now. The new Codex has come out. Is it worth taking them? Can you still take them? Actually, is probably the big question with the new Codex coming out, Emperor's Children. I'm not sure how the allying is going to work with them. Maybe you can. Maybe they're just going to cost more. I'm not sure how that will squirrel away. I might even avoid them just for that case because I haven't done the fact checking there. But these are the old models, not the new ones I've got, by the way. We've got 5 Possessed. We've got 2 squads of Trader Guard. Again, thank you, Kill Team. And we've got 5 Warp Talons. Then we've got some, weirdly, a mounted unit. Not too many of them around, but we've got some Chaos Bikes. So that's 3 Chaos Bikes there. 2 Chaos Spawn, the classic. I think everyone's got a couple of those models lying around. Then we get to the vehicles. We've got an Annihilator, a Destructor, so 2 of the Predators. The Vindicator, which I think I can nearly tell you now is definitely getting a run because it's a great vehicle. We've got a Hellbrute. The much maligned Helldrake. I wish they were good. I would love to include one just for rule of cool, but might struggle a little bit. And then we've got 2 Chaos Rhinos. So it's a bit of a decent spread in terms of what we've got. We don't have what you can kind of look at, I guess, in a lot of times in competitive lists where one sort of type of unit gets spammed, where we stick to one thing that's really good and we put lots of it in there. This is definitely going to have to be a bit of a mixed strength detachment, combined arms approach, which I don't mind. That's how I prefer to play my lists. I don't like to double or triple down too heavily on one type of unit, just because it happens to be good. Because as we just saw with the latest balanced data slate, when those things drop and they change and a unit sort of gets abused in that way, it ends up getting nerfed, it ends up getting priced out of the game, and then you go from having 40 Terminators because that was the thing at the time to now you're only ever going to run 5 and you've got 35 dudes sitting on your shelf you're never going to use. So I like to have a bit of a combined arms approach anyway, and then we'll, maybe you'll have 2 or flex to a couple more of something that is quite good, but without taking it too far. So a bit of a mix. I think that probably the thing I'm looking at, my favorite detachment, my guys are painted Night Lords, so that may make some of you happy, some of you upset, but my guys are painted Night Lords. So the detachment that I think I'm going to run with these guys, one, because I think it's it's in a good spot at the moment, powerful without being too powerful, suits the fluff, suits the Night Lords theme, and also suits a lot of the models that I've got here. So the one I'm looking at, I'll bring it up here, is the Renegade Raiders. This is just one of my favorites. Obviously, this is meant to be Huron Blackheart and the Red Corsairs. It's meant to be their thing, but I think it works really, really well for Night Lords as well. For those of you who don't know the detachment rule, what it does is it basically gives all your ranged weapons for your units assault. And every time you make an attack against a unit within range of an objective marker, improve the AP of your attacks by 1. So being able to move vehicles, bikes, infantry with an advance and still be able to shoot is fantastic, especially for vehicles being able to have that little bit of extra versatility as well. There's a couple of stratagems that help with this as well. There's ways to auto advance 6 if you really need to get the move. There's ways to make sure that you can advance and charge for some of your key infantry, so being able to shoot. And there's some units that have that innately, like Chosen, but also if you've got a Chosen unit who does that innately, and then also maybe a squad of Terminators then get to advance and charge, you've got 2 units that can cover a whole bunch of ground and then do a lot of work. So really like this. We'll have a bit of a look at the enhancements later, but there's definitely a couple here that are really, really worthwhile. Things that let you scout, reroll advance rolls, shoot when you fall back. There's some good stuff there. And the stratagems are nearly all winners. There's not too, like, they'll all come up at different times. There's ways to really increase that ability to put damage on units on objectives, which I really, really like with Ruinous Raid. There's also ways to keep moving forward or get back into transports with opportunistic raiders. There's some really, really cool stuff. And of course, the classic, they've got their own version of Armor of Contempt with unfailingly obdurate, which is just a mouthful, but basically it's Armor of Contempt. So very powerful survivability tool as well. So with that in mind, that's kind of what we're looking for. We want to have a fast-moving army that can take advantage of the assault keyword, like getting the weapons that maybe would usually be held back with because they don't have that into the list. We want to have a bit of speed, but we also want to have some close combat, fast-hitting units that want to, I guess, lure your opponent onto the objectives and then hit them really, really hard once they're there. So I think definitely one of my favorite units at the moment, I think I've only got 10 of them, but I think the foundation unit that we'll definitely look at starting will be, I want to have a Chaos Lord in the list here. So this is this fella here with the Power Fist and the Hammer. He's going to be my Warlord. And then I'm going to give him a unit of, we'll keep the 10 Chosen. As I was sort of talking about before with these guys and their special abilities, they are versatile. They can shoot, they can fight in close combat. There's a few different loadout options you can look at as well. So some cool stuff there, but obviously the rule we're looking at that makes them very good. Here we go, Chosen Marauders. This unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn which it advanced or fell back. So already you can see you're going to be wanting to advance these guys. They're going to get assault on their weapons when they advance, and then they're going to be able to charge as well. So hugely, hugely versatile. And I think with them, though, as well, they are still Chaos Space Marines, which means they're tough, but they're not that tough. There's a lot of anti-Space Marine weapons out there. So we're going to give them and make sure that we do keep in at least one of our Rhinos, which will be for the Chosen. So now we've got a Rhino, Chosen. I wish I had a Land Raider. It would be heaps of fun, but unfortunately I don't. So that's the first ins. Let's cull a few things as well. Unfortunately, these little extra ancillary characters like a Cultist Firebrand, there's some fun little characters in there, but at this current point where the list is, we're trying to trim it down a little bit. I'm going to get rid of a few of those. There's a few other interesting ones like Dark Apostle, Master of Executioners that really make units hit even harder, but then also means it is a bigger investment of points within those units. And just currently, I'm going to cut a few of those as well, just because they're kind of nice to haves versus do they actually make the team work? Do they make the team tick? So we might lose a couple more of those. The only other ones I'm going to keep in here that might be interesting is if we do look at some Terminators, a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, or the Sorcerer Lord could be easy. I think even the Dark Commune, I did think maybe some Cultists or some Curse Cultists, but I think at the moment we're going to drop that as well. We'll keep this as our list of HQs. That's still too many. We're going to have to lose something else because the Demon Prince could be really interesting as well. I really like what the Demon Princes are doing at the moment. A little bit of shooting. Their strength is in like obviously in fighting. They've got a few different cool rules. Each of those fights or shoots, while resolving those attacks, you can reroll one hit roll and you can reroll one wound roll. It's pretty powerful when, you're hitting on twos with pretty much everything. Having that little reroll means you get that extra little bit of damage. And you also get a little bit of extra protection from a distance because of the Dark Aura. 4-up Inval. These guys are pretty good. Toughness 10, 10 wounds. Having one of those in the list is a really good little versatile unit. You can kind of just send it off to do its own thing. And your opponent kind of has to deal with it. But we'll move down the list and we'll look at a bit more battle line stuff. I think at the moment we'll definitely look at keeping a cultist mob in, just the one. As I've talked about before with my list building stuff, that's sort of the starting points. You've got to make sure you have something to look after your home objective, something to score primary, something to score secondary, and lots of stuff to kill. So these guys have the one job of sitting on that backfield objective and trying not to die. So, g'day, Mel. Welcome to the chat. Yeah, we're talking chaos today, so something a little bit different from my usual flavor. But yeah, it's going to be a bit of a fun list. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. So we've got, and then we've obviously got Legionaries as well. We've got battle line stuff's pretty good. We've seen there's been a big emphasis lately on battle line stuff doing a little bit better now as well, becoming a bit more important. These guys obviously get the extra benefits within range of objective markers. So a lot of people are equipping these guys for close combat and using them to whip up the board and put a little bit of heat on. I'm going to keep just one 5-man squad just for the moment in there. And I think I'm going to leave the Berserkers there as well. I'd like to keep them in. Again, just purely fluff. I think they're very cool in this detachment. As in just from a rule of cool perspective. But they may get the chop a little bit later on. Having a 5-man 2 of the Legionaries is good. Just as other objective scorers, it's a 5-man squad. It's 90 points, but they can do secondaries. There's lots of little extra things. And interestingly enough, with Chaos, or at least with this, the models that I have, there's not too many lone operatives or ways to have those sneaky, like Guard have Gaunt's Ghosts and Slime Arbo, or Space Marines have your Primaris, Phobos Lieutenant and stuff like that. So not Phobos, the Combi Weapon Lieutenant. And they've got those models that, you just literally have them in the list. They go rogue, run around by themselves and score secondaries. Chaos doesn't have as many of those type of units, or at least I don't own them. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on what our plan is to score those secondaries as we sort of go through. All right. So let's quickly just jump down to vehicles because I want to cull this down a little bit. Unfortunately, breaks my heart to say it, the Helldrake, for whatever reason, GW just is not into flyers at the moment. And as much as I love the model and as much as I want to see this thing on the table, 205 points for something that has one little gun and is good at hunting other aircraft is just not going to make the list. We've then got 4 vehicles in. The Hellbrute's an interesting one. It's 130 points, which is quite expensive. It's the same as like a Predator Annihilator. So the anti-tank punch is not quite as good, but obviously a Hellbrute can fight not a little bit. It can fight better in close combat, especially if equipped with the right weapons. The thing that makes the Hellbrute a little bit interesting is it does have Dark Ascension, which is an aura, which means units within 6 inches, every time they make a Dark Pact until the end of that phase, they get both abilities. So as opposed to having to pick sustained or lethals, you get both. So it's actually pretty cool, and following the right unit around, if it can keep up, it can be really, really powerful. And that's sort of what you want to have in smaller point things, is things that obviously do work themselves, but obviously make other units better in your team as well. Pump other things up in your units. You want to have some synergies between the units as well. So I'm tempted to lean towards that. With the Predator Annihilator, I think it's a little bit of a battle between the Predator Annihilator and maybe something like some Havocs. We can definitely equip the Havocs to be, all las cannon. or auto cannon. So really, really good anti-vehicle. And now obviously being infantry, they're very mobile because they can have assault on their weapons as well. So they can move through terrain, which is really nice. Whereas your tanks are still going to have to move around, even with assault. They're going to be held back a little bit. You get the ablative wound of the champion as well. Who could just, get picked off. That's fine. And what have they got? They've also got, they can ignore any and all modifiers to their hit roll or ballistic skill characteristic of that weapon. So also very hard to, cops a lot. There's a lot of minus hit penalties in the game at the moment. These guys definitely circumvent that as well, which is really, really nice. So it's kind of a bit of a tough. I mean, the other thing, obviously, about the Annihilator, though, it's got 10, so it's got 11 wounds. And of course, it's not till it gets to 4 wounds does it get degraded. So its weapons are shooting and hitting really well for the whole length of the game, or until it gets down to the very end. Whereas with the Havocs, each time you lose one of them, and they're still Space Marines, so you will lose some, they get less and less effective as a unit. I am leaning towards the Havocs just because I do like in this detachment that they can move a lot faster, gives them more maneuverability. And the way I've got them currently built with 2 las cannons and 2 auto cannons means that they can kind of pinch hit a little bit, shooting vehicles and shooting, elite infantry and stuff like that, because the auto cannons definitely do some work as well. So let's keep the Havocs in for now. We've got 2 las cannons, yep, and we've got 2 auto cannons. So that's correct. We've got the Power Fist on our leader. And he's ready to rock, and he's also got a plasma gun. So there you go. You get an extra cheeky plasma gun in there as well. So I'm going to lose the Annihilator for now, but I'm going to keep the Destructor because I really like the Destructor. I just think it's such a consistent tank. We'll obviously put the 2 las cannons in the side, so we're still getting some. Actually, geez. Then again, I say that, and then I think about it. Its special ability is that basically it's even better against heavy infantry, or like elite infantry. So you get extra bonuses there you go, abilities. Destructor. Each time a ranged attack made by this model targets an enemy infantry unit, improve the AP characteristics of that attack by 1. So we can see all of a sudden if we take 2 heavy bolters and then we go, they become AP2, damage 2. Still only strength 5, but you're getting 3 shots. So, and you're getting sustained. Then you can also do the Dark Pact and you can get lethals. There's different ways to really start to pump up the amount of fire. So you can really turn this into an elite infantry killing machine. Obviously, there's also benefits of things like it's going to have assault, so it's going to be moving fast. You also get the benefit as well with Renegade Raiders of improving the AP of that attack by 1 from the detachment as well. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm tempted to go that way, and maybe we'll have a look if later as we get through the list and we decide that we don't have enough anti-tank, we can change that. Let's keep that for now. We're definitely going to include the Vindicator. The Vindicator is just a beast at the moment. Its gun's already AP3. You can shift that up to AP4 when it's shooting at units on objectives. It can shoot its weapon in close combat, so infantry climbing all over it doesn't bother it. It's just a fantastic tank that you're definitely going to want to have in your team. It's tough. It takes a lot of work for your opponent to remove, and that's a good thing because while they're working on that, other things are hopefully going to be doing even more damage. I'm going to take the Hellbrute out now just because we've got a whole bunch of points we need to cut, and we're trying to keep some stuff in that we know is going to make a big difference. Unfortunately, Chaos Spawn, you're out of here as well. I took these guys actually one time because I thought they were going to have some fun stuff, but they're not as great. They can help flip objectives, but they're just a bit too random in terms of how much their output is. you don't see them getting run very often, and I think it's for a good reason. So the Chaos Spawn are also going to be down. So we're slowly whittling this down. We're getting there. We're about halfway through our time to build this list, and we're making some progress. Chaos Bikers, I'm going to keep in for now, especially just Rule of Cool. I think they're such an iconic unit with, especially Red Corsairs, but I think they look sick as Night Lords as well. We'll keep them in for now. Let's look at this big infantry block because we've got to lose quite a bit of stuff from this. The Nemesis Claw is very cool. This is obviously the Nemesis Claw. It's based off the Kill Team. It's got some cool rules. It's got some cool models, some unique bits and pieces within it. What are their special rules? Yeah, so they get better shooting at things that are wounded and damaged, but 110 points for 5. We're already paying 90 points for a 5-man Legionnaire squad. I'd probably say for a 5-man squad, 110 is probably just a bit steep with what they're adding. I'd love to be proven wrong. If anyone out there is running them and really having success, I mean, I think just Rule of Cool they should be in, but at this current thing, I'm going to cut them just because of points. I'm going to lose the 2 Noise Marine squads just because I have no idea actually now with the release of Emperor's Children. The new codex has just come out, how the ally thing is working with that, if that's changed. So I don't want to be making a list that can't be used. Trader Guard at the moment. Yeah, I think we can definitely ditch them. Welcome to the chat, Bears for Chaos. The name you are rocking there is completely appropriate. Thanks for joining us. We're about halfway through. We're building a list, 1350 points, Chaos, Renegade Raiders, but we're doing a little bit of a recap. We're working backwards. I basically put in all the models I own, and we're culling the list down. So we're working on the infantry here. And we're trying to get it down to the usable units. So feel free to chime in if you've got any advice or if I'm making any terrible calls as well. So we do need to have a bit of a look at now secondary scoring units. We've obviously got 5 Warp Talons there. A 5-man is great in the sense that they've got Deep Strike. They're dropping in with their jump packs. They're great at picking up smaller units. They're great in close combat with that. And again, with Renegade Raiders, they get -3 AP on their Warp Claws, which is very nice. Only 1 damage, unfortunately, but twin linked. So you're really going to be pushing through quite a bit of damage. The big thing, though, for these guys is all of a sudden we've got a unit that can start getting us behind enemy lines, dropping in to get secondaries where we need. So although they can do a little bit of output, they can do a little bit of hurt. Realistically, what I'm wanting these guys here for is to be the first of our units that can actually score secondaries because we don't have a whole bunch. The other unit I'm interested in looking at for that, speaking of as well, is potentially the Felgor. They're not super cheap at 85 points, but the main benefit of a unit like this, Bestial Raiders, and this is where they get a little bit more interesting. If this unit begins the game in strategic reserves, so yes, that's where you would put them. It can be set up in the reinforcement step of your first, second, or third movement phase, regardless of any mission rules. If this unit is strategic reserve for the purpose of setting up on the battlefield, treat the current battle round number as being 1 higher than it actually is. So basically, these guys can come in on turn 1. Obviously, they don't have Deep Strike, so they're not going anywhere. But fantastic for being able to pop up on the side of the board to score, like an objective that needed to be beside the board or on a key piece of terrain or just to threaten a unit's flank. They don't do much. They've got a little bit of punch. They've got some interesting bits and pieces. You can chuck a plasma pistol in there. You can add a great weapon, which gives them a bit more close combat punch. You can add a shaman in who gives them some extra little abilities. And I would you may as well put all those things in because it's free. They still get the dark packs. But yeah, you've just got to remember that these guys aren't going to survive too long. They are toughness 4, 5 up save, 1 wound each. So, and only OC 1. So But I guess when you compare their price point to a lot of other things, if they drop in and score you 5 points or score you to help you score 10 points from a thing, or you have the ability to hold them off to later, they can work in conjunction with the warp talons to max out behind enemy lines. I think they're a good little utility piece. Is there better options? Maybe, but I don't know if we've got them in the models cupboard upstairs. I'm going to look at dropping the Accursed Cultist at the moment and the Possessed. Only reason dropping the Possessed, we've only got 5 of them, and I'm not sure if that's going to provide the punch that we would hope in this current sort of list and setup. And we've still got quite a bit of points to lose. We're at 2,240 here, so we've got some points to cut. But we're going to have to start being even more brutal, because we can always bring stuff back in, but we've got to start making sure we're getting this semblance of a list that can score, that can do damage. We don't need a second Rhino at the moment, so we can probably ditch that. We've got our Chosen, we've got our Felgor, Havocs, we've got our Warp Talons. Probably the amount of Terminators, I think we should have an amount of Terminators. I'm just not sure if it's taking a 10-man blob with a character to have a real big later game hard-hitting unit, maybe using Rapid Ingress to really come in and sort of shift something on an objective, shift off an objective, because that's kind of how you want to be working with these guys. Is you don't want to be holding the objectives, you nearly want to be waiting for your opponent to get them and then hit them later game, shift them off them, because you get the benefit when you're fighting on the objectives or your opponent's on the objectives. So definitely something to think about. Is it 2 5-man squads? So we've got that little bit more versatility that we talked about before. Sometimes the MSU or minimum size units and having more of them gives you a little bit of versatility. I think for now, as much as it upsets me, we're going to drop the 2 units of Khorne Berserkers. I would love them, but right now we're being lean and mean. So apologies. Cracked myself up so much that I had to cough then. We know we're probably going to only look at one of these 2 Chaos Lords in Terminator armor. I'm going to have some form of Terminators, and I do want a character leading them. If we look at the Chaos Lord, the big differences here is really what do their abilities bring. 95 points, it's quite expensive for the Chaos Lord, but he does have formidably resilient. Each time an attack is allocated to this model, halve the damage characteristic of this attack. That's pretty powerful for him as an individual character. He's got 6 wounds, toughness 5, obviously Terminator armor, so 2 up, 4 up. 2 up, 2 plus save with a 4 up invul. That's pretty powerful, makes him good. But I guess what makes him better is for the team, what's his force multiplier? Lord of Chaos, once per battle round, 1 unit from your arm with this ability can use it when this unit is targeted with a stratagem. If it does, reduce the CP cost of that stratagem by 1. So we talked a little bit earlier about how good a lot of these stratagems are. Being able to use those for effectively free is very powerful. Comparing that to the Sorcerer Lord, obviously you get Infernal Gaze, so you're getting some more shooty. The survivability stat line's the same. Close combat weapons are different. But then we look at abilities. The one that's very good here is we've got Warp Time. While this unit is leading a unit, you can reroll advance and charge rolls made for that unit. Compare that with the Chaos Lord. It's a bit of an interesting trade-off, because that's great. That is always on. And usually if you're deep striking your Terminators, you're looking at a 9-inch charge pretty much every time. So having an ingrained reroll that you can use every time is fantastic. Even advances later in the game if you need to move things around, because you need to scramble for objectives last minute, and units become even more valuable. The thing that is difficult, obviously, with the Lord is that the Lord can technically do the same thing because of the Lord of Chaos ability. You can just go, well, I'm going to target it with reroll, just to command reroll and reroll the charge. But that is once per battle round. And then if you've done that, you then, there's no extra CP maybe for an attack in close combat, or I don't know, maybe did you want to use an Overwatch at some other point? You know, like it locks that in. It's kind of the same ability, but it's kind of different. It's also 15 points more. But then if you get your Chaos Lord charging in at the right time, use Lord of Chaos to use, say, something like Ruinous Raid and let your Terminators reroll all their hits and wounds. Wow, that really like multiplies how much they can do. The Terminator has also got Death Hex. So what does it do? Which is D3 wounds, which is nice, and improve the armor character penetration characteristic. We're not struggling with AP currently in this detachment. I think I'm probably going to lean towards the Chaos Terminator. Yeah, I think if we become really tight on points, I think I could swap these two. But let's for now keep the Chaos Terminator Lord in. Now we need to work out how many Terminators we're actually taking. Again, I think for now at this smaller points cost or points that we've got to spend, I don't think we can currently afford a big 10-man blob. That's a lot. That's was it 460 points? What's that? Yeah. So yeah, so what 10-man? Because there's no bonuses for no bonuses or changes to the points. No, it is so 360. 360 points. That's a big chunk of points to use. Whereas if we take that down to a 5-man, 180 points. Obviously, at the moment, we've got the Chaos Terminator Lord, who himself is a beat stick. He's a powerhouse. Even if then he loses all his bodyguard, he's still a powerful individual by himself. He's still going to be able to deal out some hurt and very survivable. I think at the moment, that's it. And that's our kind of deep strike choice. Thanks, Bears for Chaos, for agreeing with the Lord choice. I feel like it's tight. If it's 15 points different, but I just think that versatility of the his ability just gives him the edge over the librarian there. Weirdly, I really like librarian Terminators though. I think they're really cool. All right, 1725. We're making some progress. We're getting there. We've still got some choices. The Heretic Astartes Demon Prince, again, is a really cool, versatile unit. But again, at this point, 165 is a huge chunk of points to be putting in there. And I'm like, does his output give us what we need? I mean, if we look at his stats, he's moving 8 already. We can obviously also then do with this detachment, he can do the advance. He can still shoot. There are ways to get him to advance and charge. So again, he's a great candidate to be using that CP in conjunction, say, with the Chosen. So you've got 2 big units hitting really, really hard. Just got to have a look. The Chaos Spikes are, to me, looking a little expensive now for what they do. These are one of those units that I really like for Rule of Cool, but I find their output very rarely matches them how cool they look as models. They've also their ability, Rapid Assault. Each time a model in this unit makes a melee attack, if it made a charge move, improve the strength of this attack by 1. So they can really, that means even their basic close combat weapons are bare minimum strength 5, but still only AP 0, damage 1, maybe AP 1 if you're charging something on an objective. Mel, I'm with you about loving Terminators. I would love a 10-man blob. I think you're right. 2,000 points, you're always taking a 10-man blob. I think that it's huge to be able to go. There's something very 40k about having a big blob of Terminators. So it's very hard to sit here and only have 5. Maybe we can shuffle some things around if we can find a spare 180 points. I mean, at this point level, 10 Terminators is tough to deal with, especially then if you give them a Chaos Lord and he's doing unfailingly obdurate. People are going to have to put a lot of work into it. But yeah, it's for me, the bikes are going to have to go. It's 70 points, and I just think at the moment they don't do quite enough. So the bikes are going to be out of here. So we're getting close. 1655. Oh, geez. Okay. because we do have to make sure, like, the thing that I'm probably looking at this list and I'm going, well, what are we holding objectives with? That's probably the hard thing at the moment. We've got the cultist mobs hopefully going to be doing his darndest to hold our home. We've got a 5-man legionary, which is a good little versatile unit that can help us score secondaries. But it can also just be a body sitting on an objective when it's pushing up. And hopefully, because it's just 5 legionaries, it kind of gets a little bit ignored over some of the bigger threats. We've got the Chaos Terminators later to drop in and pick something. We've got the Chosen in the Rhino who are going to be pushing, I guess whatever our primary objective is or whatever our opponent is putting the biggest heat on. I am thinking a little bit more. Do we have enough anti-tank? I guess we do, because we've got Terminators to open up some stuff if we needed. The Havocs are pretty consistent. We've got a Predator Destructor. Does bring me back to, do we look at putting the las cannons on that? Maybe to give us just a bit more firepower. But then we've still got to go, what goes? What is the things in this list? And I keep coming back to this 165-point Demon Prince. Let's say we lose the Demon Prince for now. 165 points. That gets us to 1490. We're close. 140 points. That still means we need to lose something pretty hefty to get us down. And then that does mean now all of a sudden, is that looking at our Havocs? Is that looking at our Predator Destructor? We've got to find a way to lose some points. Or do we look at culling smaller units and keeping it more elite? Do we look at dropping something like the Legionaries and the Felgor? That's 175 points right there. But then it really leaves us lacking on our ability to score secondaries. So, yeah, this is one of my favorite things about list building. I don't know about you out there watching this, but this is the fun conundrums you get to, where you're trying to build a list and you want it to be competitive. You want it to have some fun theme. You want it to have the units that you love playing, but also it's got to all fit in. So the tough decisions, then you might play the game and go, oh, geez, I really made the wrong decision when I dropped X, or geez, I wish I'd taken more of. The other option is you could, it's just the 5 Legionnaires. I keep coming back to that, but I think we do need them. 10 Chosen is very expensive at 250 points. Is there something to be said for halving that squad? Bringing that back down? That definitely frees up some points, but then it really makes that a less effective. We don't really have, that's our big hammer unit. That's the thing we want our opponent to be afraid of. And I'm worried if we neuter that, we may be hurting ourselves across the board. It could be something said for looking at dropping the Destructor, because that gets us, what's that, 140. That gets us it on the nose. I don't know if that's the right call just yet, because I do worry if we lose the Destructor, we still don't then we're still that's our elite anti-infantry killer, which things like the Chosen can do, the Terminators can do. And we also then still haven't got any room for any of the enhancements. And I'm not going to lie, I want some of these enhancements, because these are all pretty good. Ways to farm CP, letting encouraging rewarding units for being up the board. Scout 6, Tyrant Slash, it gives a reroll your advance roll and shoot when you fall back. But they're quite expensive, 15, 15, 25, and 20 points. Quite a bit of points in there as well. So let's walk through. I think that we're deploying how we're going to do this. So we're going to have our 10 cultists at the back. We're going to have our 5 legionaries hiding off to the side somewhere, looking to advance up the board and sneak on an objective. We've got our Chaos Lord, who's going to be in a Rhino with our Chosen. We've got the Terminator Lord in Deep Strike with 5 Terminators coming in. Joining them in Deep Strike is our 5 Warp Talons. And we're going to have in Strategic Reserves our Felgor Beastmen, who are going to be our sneaky point scoring units that give us a little bit of versatility. The back of the table, we're going to have our Havocs with their heavy weapons. The Chaos Vindicator, because obviously the Vindicator just works so well with pushing up the board and supporting us, putting pressure on those middle objectives. The benefit of the Havocs too is that they want to stay as far back as possible. So they can kind of work in conjunction a little bit with the cultist mob as well to provide a little bit of backfield screening just because they're going to be hanging back. And then we've got the Rhino, which is obviously going to have in it the Chosen with the leader. It's a pretty tight list. I don't know what I'd drop. There is something to be said for looking at maybe dropping the Felgor Beastmen, because maybe I'm giving them too much credit for how many points they could score us. And what we could realistically do is look at grabbing another cultist mob, putting these guys into strategic reserves, and them effectively doing the same thing. Obviously, they don't have the benefit of coming in the first turn, but I always play tactical objectives. I never play fixed. So, you're also got to hedge your bets there and go, well, how often in that first turn are you going to get one that needs you to drop someone in that first turn? So maybe that's the trade. It's sad because I love having the Beastman models in there, but for 50 points, it's saving us 45. And all of a sudden now we can look at that gets us probably two enhancements that we probably want to do. So yeah, I reckon that's it. As much as I wanted the Beastman, because one, the models I painted, I'm really proud of them as well. Gotta kill your darlings sometimes. I want them in the list. My cultists don't look anywhere near as cool. But yeah, 2 cultists in. I think that's the value. And I said we can look at putting one of them in strategic reserves. They now perform the same thing. Now we've got room for our enhancement. So let's have a quick look at our enhancements. So obviously we've got the Chaos Lord who's leading the Chosen. And with him leading the Chosen, obviously we do have the double up Lord of Chaos ability here. He does have the same ability as the Terminator Lord, which is good in some ways because it gives us redundancy. If one of them dies, the other one can be using it, or vice versa. One of them is in strategic reserve. The other can be using it when they're not on the battlefield, because you can't have them both use it in the same battle round. But again, early days, that's quite powerful. I still think that's a good choice. What we're wanting to be aware of, though, is obviously, but in the fact they're leading the Chosen, it means that we already can advance and fall back, shoot and declare a charge in a turn, which we advance and fall back. So when we look at our enhancements, we know that we don't need to worry about looking at Tyrant's Lash for this unit. That one's off the list. Mark of the Hound, Heretic Estates models in this Bearer's unit have the Scout 6 ability. I guess that would get a Scout on our Rhino as well if they're in the Rhino. But I'd probably say, and I might be wrong, but because we can advance already, there's abilities to advance and charge, advance and shoot, all those options. I don't know if speed is necessarily a thing that these guys need to worry about at the start of the battle. I think they're going to be fast enough. Not to mention the fact that in my battle plan, how I see it happening is I'm kind of really wanting my opponent to be the one to initiate and get on those objectives so that we can hit them hard in a counter. So Mark of the Hound's probably not the one. So we're probably looking at either Despot's Claim or Dread Reaver. Despot's Claim, at the start of your command phase, if the bearer is on the battlefield, roll 1d6, add 1 to the result if the bearer is wholly within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. On a 5+, you gain a CP. CP is great. Extra CP, especially in this detachment. We've got great enhancements we want to use. We're lucky we've got the 2 Lords. We're already getting some economy with that. But adding more potentially, especially because you're going to be aggressive, you should most of the time be within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone. Yeah, especially this might even be one that's slightly better on the Terminator, but then I guess if they're not on the battlefield till later in the game, it could be a little bit wasted. Otherwise, Dread Reaver. Each time your bearer makes a melee attack, if the bearer is wholly within 12 inches of your opponent's deployment zone, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. I think this is the one for these guys because we're wanting to be super aggressive with them. We're wanting to push them up the board. So again, they're going to be using the Rhino to get up there. They're going to be hitting those middle objectives, putting pressure on our opponent, getting within 12 inches of the deployment zone should be. I mean, look, if you're aware of it and you work towards it, because note the caveat, wholly within. The bear is wholly within, so got to make sure you're pushing right up. But I think that's very good. And getting hit, reroll, and wound roll is pretty crazy. There is something to be said for potentially putting this on maybe the Terminator Lord, because of course, when you're deep striking them in, they're probably nearly always going to be deep striking back lines. But I think there's a different one that's going to suit them a little bit more. So let's go Dread Reaver on our Chaos Lord. And I mean, that sounds fantastic in terms of it just suits him. And then we've got 20 points left. And then I think that means we're definitely putting the Tyrant's Lash onto the Terminator Lord. So basically this means you can reroll advanced rolls made for Bear's units, and the Bear's units are able to shoot in a turn in which it fell back. So the reason I'd probably consider putting this on the Terminators is they're going to be dropping down late game, and they're obviously going to have they have to make an impact quickly in the last few turns. So them having some versatility in terms of maneuverability and not getting stuck or lost in no man's land, i.e. they deep strike in, fail a long charge, and then are stranded for a turn, being able to advance and move, advance and shoot better, or getting tied up by a rubbish unit, being able to fall back and still have an impact on other units. I think giving them a little bit of security with that as well is primo. There's definitely something to be said for potentially putting the Dread Reaver on the Terminators, but I just think it's a little bit wasted. If that was the case, I'd do Dread Reavers on the Terminators, and then I'd do Despot's Claim on my leader just to keep farming those CP. But I'm pretty comfortable with that. And the best part, that puts us on 1350 on the Snoot, which I'm really, really happy about, because I was getting really, really, really worried about if we were going to get this all in. So look, it's interesting. I'm actually really excited to test this out and see how it goes, and see if there's anything that I've missed. I mean, the theory crafting of list building is half the fun, but of course, until you get it on the battlefield and roll some dice and actually put it up against certain opponents, you don't know. You don't know what it's gonna do. Still a little bit worried about some of the secondary scoring. This 5-man legionary squad, I'm definitely gonna have to not be too callous with, because although you go, oh, it's only 5 guys, I think they're gonna have to do a little bit of yeah, I think they're gonna have to do a little bit of heavy lifting to work in conjunction with the Warp Talons. Again, lucky they've got the advance and shoot. So they'll be surprisingly nippy. Who knows? Even maybe once the Chosen gets dropped off, the Rhino can swing around and pick them up and keep them alive for a little bit longer. But it's also that thing too. Once the Rhino's done its job of delivering them, if it didn't get blown up in the process, it becomes a little bit of a secondary scorer as well, because all of a sudden for your opponent, it's an annoyance, but they're not really going to want to put heavy firepower into getting it off the board. So it becomes a little bit of a secondary unit if it survives. So we've got our heavy hitters. Still probably thinking maybe a little bit of anti-tank might be a little bit of an Achilles heel. This is definitely a vehicle-heavy meta at the moment. There's lots of it going on, but we've got the Vindicator, we've got the Havocs, the Chosen can punch out some damage, we've got some Terminators. We've definitely got options. And at this tighter points thing, I think we've got lots of versatility. The Cultists are cheap units, throw away at the back, but again, if they come in and score their secondary, and again, if your opponent ignores them, they can pinch an objective. Still surprised they're still in the OC1. I would have thought, maybe they'd give them make them a little bit more palatable by making them OC2, so you'd want to take hordes of Cultists, because I think that's how they should be run. But yeah, so let's just quickly, we'll walk through the list one more time, and then that's the list. So we've got our Chaos Lord, who's going to be leading 10 Chosen, and he's going to be Dread Reaver as well, which is going to give him, totally already forgot what it does, Dread Reaver, which gives us the reroll their hits and wounds once we're pushed up the board. We've got our Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, who's going to be with 5 Terminators in Deep Strike, and he's got the Tyrant's Lash, so they don't get tied up. They can keep their versatility once they land. 2 cultist mobs, 1 on our home objective, 1 in strategic reserves for sneaky secondary action. 5 legionaries, also there for just a bit of versatility. I did forget to mention, I would equip these guys probably for close combat as well. Again, if they have to try to charge to flip an objective from a squishy unit or something, I think that's going to suit them best. And again, because we can pump that up with the extra APL. We've got, yeah, Terminators are chosen. We know where they are. And the chosen, obviously, in the Rhino. 5 Havocs watching our backfield in conjunction with the Cultists, which also means in a pinch, if the Cultists get wiped, the Havocs can also sort of shuffle back and watch the backfield or can give us a little bit of support back there as well. 5 Warp Talons in strategic reserve, dropping in, scoring us some points. And the Vindicator doing the work, doing the Chaos God's work on the battlefield. Storming forward in support and being a big distraction can't effects. If they ignore it, it punishes them. If they put rounds into it, it's great because it means that other units aren't getting hurt. So I'm pretty happy with that list. I think that's going to be a bit of fun. I'm going to make sure to pop this in. I do have a Discord, 3 still in Discord. All the lists that I make each week get popped in there. So you can just grab them. It's just in a PDF form, so you can always grab them yourself and download and have a bit of fun. But you can also just chuck in your thoughts as well in there as well. Make sure you comment on this video, like, subscribe, tell your friends if you've got other people who like list building, like theory crafting, and while they're painting their models or building their own lists, yeah, always good to chuck this on and work in conjunction, because I love obviously having those live in the chat. Thank you to Bears for Chaos, Mel, and JJ for joining us and being active in there. Yeah, we're going to keep doing this each week. These obviously then go up as a VOD. But yeah, make sure you like and comment, even if it's just something to say that you enjoyed the video, because that helps the algorithm, gets these videos out to more people as well. The more people to watch, more people join the conversation, the more fun we have making these videos. Also, comment below as well. What teams would you like, or what types of lists would you like me to have a crack at building? So you can either test them out yourself and tell me how they go. Because there's obviously a lot of factions that I haven't played too. It'll be fun doing some theory crafting with a lot of the other lists as well. So thanks again to everyone in the chat. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.